Hello MeteoData family, welcome to another amazing Python tutorial episode, and in today's episode we would love to just address one of the questions that was asked by one of our subscribers. We know it's been a while and we are glad to be back again to share some quick tips and then some nuggets with you. Alright, if you are new here, don't forget to subscribe, turn on post notification, and then be updated with every information that we put out there for your use. Right, so we quickly delve in, and then the question says, okay, can you make a small tutorial in which you show how to make figures in a panel, example, 3 rows and 3 columns? And then it says, I'm trying Matplotlib and CattoPy, but I have a problem with my projections and color bar. I want same color bar for my figures, and I also need a map on the figure. I've tried, but it's not working. If you can just show simple NetCDF example, it will be very helpful. Thank you. All right, so there'll be aspects that I would be skipping and then probably just relate to where we can find them. So for instance, we are going to read through a NetCDF file. So we can use NetCDF for probably use XRE. I prefer to use XRE for multiple reasons. In fact, I mean, others also have reasons for choosing NetCDF4. Okay, so we import our packages here. That's like importing XRE, importing matplotlib.pyplot. This is purely for our plotting functionalities because of what we would want to do with it. And then, I mean, warnings are not necessarily errors, they are just promptings that are telling you, okay, some commands will soon be obsolete, and then, some issues and then all that, but not necessarily errors. So I wouldn't want them to flood my page, so I'll just ignore them. And then now we open our XRE dataset as a netcdf file, read it into let's say data, let's say ds data. Okay, and then I mean, what I want is just the monthly totals first. There's a daily data, so I want the monthly totals, and after that I would want to have a climatology of it. So I resample the data on the months, found the totals for each month of all the respective years, and then I did the climatology by grouping the data on the months and then finding their climatological means. All right, so we select the variable, and of course there's a conversion factor. If you followed my tutorial, you see why we do this conversion here, because of the units. Okay, we read that into ds, and then once we are done with this, I just want to close my data set because I've already extracted what I need, pass it to the cs_ds. So I wouldn't want to consume more memory, so I'm going to run that so it closes. Okay, so while this is running, I'll just run you through this part. Now in here, what we have is we try to create subplots, and I've explained this before. So for instance, if I create just the figure interface and then also create the respective axis, that's like the individual panels, by just using plt.subplots and then indicating the number of columns, the number of rows, and then the figure size. Now if you type in here your axis, you see that the axis are, because it's 2 by 2, it gives us 1 2 3 4, and we can refer to any position by their index. So for instance, if I want the axis, let's say this is 1, this 0 0 0 1 1 0 1 1. So if I need, let's say, the plot to go into this, I can just call axis 1 0, which is 1 on the row, 0 on the column. Of course, this is based on the matrix position vector notation. All right, okay, so if you need the projection, you would have to indicate here your subplot keyword, that's the quarks, and then in here you would pass as a dictionary projection, and then you give your projection type. But then bear in mind, we've not imported CattoPy, so we'll then have to do this import let's say, let me just import a few things. So from CattoPy, import CRS, and then also import the feature. Okay, so run that. Okay, so now in here we can just pass the projection we want. So CRS dot say plate carry, and then that's it. Okay, now this is not a string, this is actually a variable on its own. The projection is the the descriptor So that's more like a string. And once we are done with that, we have the next line. Now I'm going to comment this and explain that later. Okay. So all I'm doing is within the sys data, you would notice from here, within the sys data, when we did the monthly climatology, now we have 12 months. So the climatology for say January, February in that order, where the description is 1, 2, 3 up to 12. So if I pick say dot month, sorry, let's say dot cell where month equals to 1, that's going to be for January alone. Okay, if I'm going to use the index position, and then it means with just the square brackets, I can say 0. That means the time at position 0, which is the same January. Okay, so you can use any of that. Okay, so I'm just sticking to the position, where in this case 4 refers to the 5th month, because Python indexing starts from 0. So this is going to be May data, and we just plotting it, and we pass in the keyword AX and specify where we want it to be, the axis we will need that to be on. So you remember these were 2 by 2, so first one 0, 0, and then add color bar, we set that to false, but then we would have to set our vmin and vmax so that controls the limits. Okay, else they wouldn't be uniform. So we either set vmin vmax, or we would pass in our levels, and then the levels will be quite regulated. Okay, so even though you are skipping the color bar, make sure you pass in your minimum and maximum thresholds. And so we do same for June, July, August, and then in fact, since they are all the same vmin vmax, what I just do is to assign the last one to a variable, so I can use that variable for my color bar, and of course it's going to be the same. All right, so there's no need to assign all of them to a variable. Okay, when we are done now, from the figure, which is the bigger template, we are going to add an axis. Now this axis is just a position, sort of an indication of the positioning, and then the length or the spread along which we would have the color bar. So we have fig.add axis, and then we indicate here that the position. So when you take your frame, let's say this green whole box is representing my plot frame. Now from the bottom is 0, the top part is 1, the left is 0, the right part is 1. So if I indicate 0.175, that means from the bottom just identify position 0.175, and then sorry, that's x first. So x is going to be from the left. From the left, identify position 0.175, and then y 0.1. That means from the bottom 0.1. Okay, so think of it as the typical, number line, and then all those coordinates plotting system. So x 0.175, y 0.1, and after that we have the length along the x. So the length along my x should be 0.65, longer, and then the height in terms of the y, should be 0.02. Okay, so that just tells us the dimension of our color bar. When we are done now, we go back and we add onto the figure interface the color bar, and we will then pass in here our variable cb. That means it's going to create the color bar based on the input from the plot we did, and then the keyword cax will be assigned to the axis we set. Right, and then we indicate the orientation. Now at least this orientation I pass in the horizontal. You can actually change it to vertical, and then change your dimensions. And then I want both the maximum and minimum to be extended with arrows, so I pass in the extend both. All right, so let's comment the last two, and then we explain that afterwards. So we run this, and then you see the plot. So that's it. That's typically how it looks. Okay, and then the last two is just we are adding certain parameters. So for instance, I want to add a label, and then the label size should be 24, and then I set the label over here as say rainfall. That's millimeter per month. Okay, I don't need to set the size here again. I mean, it doesn't do anything necessarily. So that's it. It adds okay, sure. That's it. So the size in here is for actually the text of the label size. Then the label size we saw up here is actually for the ticks, the values on the color bar. So if we set that to say 16, you'll notice, all right, exactly, that's it. Okay, now you can see that the plots are, running into color bar. So what we can do is to bring the plt.subplot adjust to adjust our panels, and then we indicate that okay, the bottom of the plot should start from 0.2, so that once it starts from 0.2, which is the whole plotting interface should start from 0.2, then it means this will be left on that 0.175, and that goes quite below the plotting margin. And then we indicate W space as a width space, and then the H space for the height space, that spacings horizontally between, vertically between any two panels. So once we do that, we have our plots rightly spaced. Bear in mind, we are using a projection, so the projection would keep themselves intact. Okay, so we can change this back to, let's say, 1010, and then we have quite a sizable plot. Okay, now we've already gone through how to add you know your borders and the rest to the plot. You can already do that. It's not a big deal. So for instance, I pick the axis. Now in this case, the first one is axis 0 0. In here, let's try for 1. So you have your axis 0 0 dot coastlines, for instance, and then this should add the coastlines to it. So on the first one, you notice that the coastlines comes in with the black line there, and then we can then add the border. So axis 0 0 again dot add feature, and then we go back and pick our feature dot borders. Okay, we add the borders to it, and that places the country lines on that. Okay, all right. Let me change the CMap here to say terrain reversed, and there you have it. Okay, so if we are going to maintain that, then it means we should use the same CMap all through, so that there's uniformity in the plot and then the color bar. Okay, and that's what we have. All right, so you can still add the projection, info to all the other panels, just like we did in the first one. All right, so that's it. There you have it. If you have any question, don't forget to leave them in the comment section, then the team would respond to it. We hope you've learned from this, and we look forward to more questions from you and more learning time with you. Bye bye.